Hello and welcome back to my 20-foot long 1975-ish fiberglass cabin cruiser Twiggy, which I am slowly, and it is very slow, refurbishing, and I'll have an update for you on that in a moment. Various people have been saying, what's happened to the little yellow boat? Haven't seen that for ages. Not every video is going to be about the refurbishment. It's always on this channel stuff that interests me on the canals with intermittent updates on Twiggy, because as I say, progress is quite slow. I can only really get down here about once a fortnight at the moment, so there's not a lot going on. But I will tell you what I've been up to in just a second. Before that though, an exciting announcement. Long-time viewers may recall that ages ago I muttered about starting to write a book. It must have been 2 or 3 years ago, and I got halfway through writing the book and then I kind of lost track of it, and I finally finished it off, and here it is, Cruising the Cut, a guide to buying, owning and living on a canal boat. That is A4 paper. It is 164 sides. What's that? 82 pages of A4, and it's essentially a brain dump of everything I know about canals, like a really long version of my frequently asked questions page on my website. Starts off with a bit of a contents list. There we go. There is a larger version of that on the site where you can get hold of the book, and then at the back I've got quite a comprehensive index and also a glossary of terms which goes through lots and lots of boaty stuff. And then the main contents, it's got bits about boat layouts, exterior layouts, interior layouts, it's got stuff about how boats are built, it's got how electrics, it's got a bit about maintenance, it's got stuff about living aboard and what it's like to actually drive a narrowboat. It literally just is a brain dump of everything I could think of to do with canals and canal boats. And if you'd like to get hold of a copy, oh, please do, then you can get it from the link in the video description, but I'll tell you now, it's cruisingthecut.co.uk/ebook. I'm calling it an ebook. It's actually a PDF file, one you can just download and then open on your PC or your laptop or your tablet or your phone or whatever. Everything reads PDFs these days. It is a purchase because I've put hours and hours of work into that, but I think I have kept it fairly reasonably priced. As I say, go to cruisingthecut.co.uk/ebook. Now, the site I'm selling it through, which I did because it just offers easy way of selling digital downloads, will suggest when you go to checkout that you might want to become a member for all sorts of perks and benefits. That's nonsense. I do not offer perks and benefits to members through that site. If you really want perks and benefits, and they're very, very limited there, you could become a Patreon. But just to buy the book, just check out as guest. There is a just continue as guest option, so just do that if you like. I hope you like it. It's got pictures in it which don't come out very well when you print it black and white, but on the screen they look lovely. So I've tried to illustrate all sorts of aspects of it. So when I'm talking about exterior design, I've got, there we go, picture of trad sterns, and then when I talk about different interior bits, I talk about, oh, I've gone past the interior bits, but anyway, you get the gist. There we go. Look, I've got a picture of an electric motor in a narrowboat, and I've got a picture of solar panels on a narrowboat. So I've tried to liven the text up a bit with various pictures. Pictures of a wide beam, pictures of a Dutch barge, pictures of a swan with a little baby swan riding on its back. You get the general gist. So that's enough plugging of that. I just needed to let you know, people have been saying to me, will you write a book? I have now written this PDF ebook, and it is available. So with that out of the way, let's get on with showing you what is happening on the refurb of Twiggy. First of all, a quick update of what's happening here in the cockpit. As you can see, there are seats here, and these are just ordinary foam covered with this vinyl, I suppose, kind of covering, waterproof, but they're all a bit mucky. I mean, you've got mucky marks there and there, and you've got mucky marks there and there. So I thought I would take one home and try to give it a bit of a clean up. So I have taken this one, which hopefully you can see on camera is a lot shinier and whiter than the one I just showed you. I've been using a slightly abrasive cleaner called the Pink Stuff, which gets rave reviews on Amazon, and I'm not a great fan of it, but it did actually do a reasonable job on this. It's not perfect. There are still 1 or 2 marks. There's a mark up there in the corner which doesn't want to come off. That looks more like pen or something that doesn't want to come off. But the dirt, and if you look really closely at this, there you can see it's got a grain, I suppose, like little micro channels in the vinyl which trap all the dirt. So I've given it a jolly good scrub, and I think that one looks a lot better than, for example, that one, which I've not yet taken home. I mean, look at the state of that. So flushed with the success of the first one, I'm going to take the other cushions home and give them a jolly good clean. And secondly, let me introduce you to the current state of the main cabin. Brace yourself, it's not pretty. First of all, as we go in, the most obvious thing you can see is those are the bits of hardboard that I took down off the ceiling, and those are just stored there at the moment out of the way. The floor is covered in all sorts of bits and flakes, which is both the foamy stuff that came off the roof, but also a load of other stuff. Look at the state of this sink, absolutely covered in bits. What are those bits? Well, when I took the carpets off, they were of course glued to the walls, and having taken the carpets off, a lot of the glue came off with the carpets and a lot didn't. So then I was stuck with trying to de-glue the walls of the boat, and it turns out, as you can see, the boat's fiberglass was painted yellow, and as I started pulling off bits of old glue which were all flapping about and you wouldn't want to adhere anything new to, some of the old paint started coming off as well. So what I've had to do is start sanding back the sides of the boat, firstly to get off the old loose adhesive, but then to pull off loads of bits of flaky paint that are also coming off underneath as well. And this has been a very, very painstaking task, because you'd think you just get a sander on it, but the sander doesn't do very well on glue. And also you can see all these little details, like there's a little notch in the fiberglass there where it comes in, and then you've got little corner bits, and then you've got bits down here, and a sander is just, even a small sander is just too big to get into these surfaces. So the only effective way I've found to get rid of the flaky adhesive and the flaky paint is my multi-tool with a tungsten carbide very abrasive little disc on it, because this is fine enough that I can just get it round all the window frames and into all the nooks and crannies. You wouldn't believe how many odd little wobbles, I want to call them, knobbles, little sticky out bits of fiberglass are. You'd think it'd be flat, curved hull, straightforward. No, of course it isn't. Of course it isn't. It's got undulations in it for random reasons, and as I say, a flat sander, if you put it up, only bits of the disc would be touching the actual fiberglass. So this has proved slow but effective. The only trouble being that I've also discovered the fiberglass of the boat is very thin, and this is very abrasive, and if I push this too hard, I'm pretty certain at some point I am just going to go through the hull of the boat. Luckily, all the taking off of this is above the waterline, so no danger, touch fiberglass, of actually sinking it with this so far, and I haven't gone through. But it is shocking how thin the fiberglass is. When the sun is out, you sometimes look through different bits of the boat and it's glowing. The sunlight's coming through the fiberglass. I don't know if that's normal. I mean, it is glass after all, but it's a little bit alarming. And as you can probably see, I've taken all this quite well back, getting all this round here. Then you suddenly discover there are all these little screws that are holding the window in that were clearly painted over a long, long time ago. And it's just taking me a while. And before anyone says, I hope you're wearing a mask, and I do appreciate the concern, yes, I've been very sensible, and I have bought a full-blown, everything you can possibly filter out mask, and also a protective coverall as well. So I've been taking a lot of care of that, and it's still not quite done. And what I want to do, and I don't know if this is going to be feasible, you see the metalwork where it's joined to the hull, it's screwed down so the bolts come through into the boat. Well, everywhere that those bits of metalwork have been bolted through, there are cracks in the gel coat which suggest that the strain of anyone pulling on ropes or pulling on those bits of metal is flexing the fiberglass and therefore fracturing the gel. So I thought it might be a good idea to unbolt from the inside all those bits, and once I've finished doing everything, bolt them back on, but with some sort of metal plate with holes in it to spread the load and hopefully stop any new gel coat or any touch-up work I do from cracking. But when you actually try to get to the underside of those bolts, you'd think fiberglass, bolt, easy, job's a good one. No, they were painted over. They seem to be pretty well hidden, and in one or two places they seem to have sunk into the fiberglass. It's a bit peculiar, but here is an example. That's the first bolt of the first bit of metal railing outside, and it's got a little washer on it, which presumably was to distribute the weight, and it's kind of formed a little, now do I mean concave or convex? I can't remember. I think I mean concave, but a little bowl shape from being presumably pulled through the fiberglass a bit. I was thinking a bigger patch of something. Anyway, that bolt is relatively straightforward to get to, but the others, some of which are up there and some of which are in the anchor locker, I think, are going to be a bit more troublesome. You can see this is partly the area I haven't done. I've scraped off loose paint there, and then back there it's like the surface of Mars or the moon or something. It needs cutting back, and I can't just glue the new carpet in over the top of this because some of that glue and paint is flaking off. You can just peel it off like a scab. It's actually rather pleasing, but it needs to be done before I can stick anything new in there. Look, you can tell I'm a professional boat builder now. I have rolls of blue paper, many rolls for wiping up all the mess. Just for your curiosity, that is what it looks like over there where the electrics were and the back of the steering column is. And that is the other side, which we are nominally calling the galley, but will also become the electrics side. I'm still thinking of having the battery down there in that corner, possibly with the solar charge controller in there above it as well, but possibly putting a little cabinet here with the electronics in it. That was just a little set of shelves before, but I thought I could put the electrics in there and then wire up and over the door, and then they can just go to the little switch panel there, all of which will keep them well away from the sink and the water, which will be below there. The roof, meanwhile, has a few bits of mould on it, which I'm going to clean off with acetone. By the way, I tried acetone on the glue. It just sat there and laughed at me, so that was a waste of time. But something more problematic I found is, you see this? That is a strip of wood that has been glassed into the roof, and there's another one there, presumably some sort of reinforcing, but also, unfortunately, and I don't know if it's still going to do it, it might have dried out by now. Yes, it's dried out, but when I was here last, oh no, it is still a bit wet, soaking. The wood is soaking. I've cut it back there, and there was just drips of brown water coming out. So I think I'm going to have to get my multi-tool in there and cut this whole section of wood out and then glass in, do my first ever bit of fiberglassing and glass in a new bit to replace this, because this is, yeah, I mean, you can see bits flaking off even, there we go, with my finger, that's paint and stuff. It's just sodden, that wood. It's not good at all. There we go, I said it was like picking a scab, didn't I? It is sort of satisfying, but if you do it with your fingers, it just takes forever. Actually, that wood doesn't feel too bad, but there was a lot of water in it. And some of this ceiling paint is coming off, so I'm going to have to get rid of any loose bits of that as well before I can stick anything back on. Now, quite clearly, when faced with a challenge like this, the thing to do is not crack on with it, but instead procrastinate by buying things for the boat that you will want at some distant point in the future, many months from now. So I've bought 4 little recessed LED light bulbs. Here's one of them, if I can get it out of the packet. There we go, very slimline, and just a little LED bulb, draws almost no power, and that will go up into the roof. I've got 4 of those. I thought 2 at the front, 2 at the back, and you know, it's only got to light up enough for you to see what you're doing. Don't need any grand lighting solutions. I have also, this is very exciting, my father used to use this stuff many years ago. When I was a child, I have memories of the smell of what used to be known as plastic padding and is now very disappointingly rebranded as Terrason, which is a rubbish name, isn't it? Plastic padding was such a great name. It's basically a fiberglass filler paste that you mix up with a hardener, and then you've got about 20 minutes to put it in any little holes or gaps or whatever. And Dad used to use this stuff, and it gives you this distinct sort of plasticky, fiberglassy waft. The smell is very evocative of my childhood, and I'm ridiculously excited to have bought my first ever tub of plastic padding. I am just furious that they've stopped calling it plastic padding. If you've got a great, fun, easy to remember brand name like that, why do you rebrand as Terrason? I don't know if Terrason is the name of the company. No, it's Henkel. Henkel products own this. Well, they should have. Henkel, keep it called plastic padding. That's a much better name. And that stuff I'm going to use to touch up the many little holes there are in the fiberglass. Trouble is, this stuff only seems to come in white, and obviously lots of bits of Twiggy are yellow. So I'll presumably have to paint, or when I get around to refurbing the gel coat, if I can get a gel coat match, put some gel coat over the top of the plastic padding. Just leave it recessed enough when I do the filling that I can put a bit of gel coat over the top. What else have I bought? So many toys, so little progress. I have here a shunt, which if you are not familiar with electronics, this is a device that enables you to measure how much current is coming out of your batteries. And you basically put it on the negative of the output of the battery, and it's Bluetooth, and you can monitor it on your phone. I've got exactly the same setup in my camper van. I am in many ways replicating what I did in the camper van on the boat. So that is a Victron shunt. Got that from Onboard Energy, who I've bought things before. I bought the solar panels from the van from them, I seem to recall, and a few other bits as well. When I went to pick up that, they looked me up on their system, and I had about 6 different entries. I can't remember what else I've got from them, but clearly I've bought many things over the years. Then I've got a little temperature sensor, which the battery I've got a lithium battery, basic 100 amp hour drop-in standard car battery size lithium, but although it has a BMS to monitor all the charging and stuff, it doesn't have a low temperature cutoff, and you must not charge lithiums below freezing. So what you do is you get the little temperature sensor that goes with the solar charge controller, and if the temperature sensor says the battery is below 0 degrees, or 2 or 3 degrees to be on the safe side, then this stops trying to charge it. And the reason I have bought a new solar charge controller, given that there is already one in the boat, is that the one in the boat is a basic PWM simple unit, and I don't think it has a lithium setting. Whereas I know, and again I've used a version of this in the van, it's Bluetooth, and I can monitor everything and know what the state of the solar charge is, etc, etc. And the final thing I've got in here is just some jolly good chunky cables, which will take 240 amps DC, and those are going to be the main cables that come off the battery into a master switch, fused obviously, and then on to anything else in the boat. Now, I'm not going to need anything like that, but with a thought to potentially putting an inverter in later, I thought I'd better get chunky cables. The biggest draw will actually be one of my other purchases, which, yes, let me show you that now. Hang on. Look at this. Is this not a thing of beauty? It is possibly the world's smallest fridge from Alpicool. I think it's got a 9 litre capacity. That's the power supply. Let's just take that out so you get a better sense. You can fit standard cans of cola or whatever in there, or cheese. It does manage a block of cheese. And I've tested the fridge, it works very well. And that is actually going to be the biggest power draw, and even that's not going to be a huge amount. I've calculated on a 12 volt battery about 21 amp hours per day, because I tested it for a while and saw what the run time was and the on-off cycle time and so on. So about 21 amp hours a day. So my 100 amp hour lithium battery should give it, in theory, 4 days without any trouble. And of course that's assuming no solar topping the battery up. Isn't it cute? And the idea is that that is going to go under there on runners, so it just pulls out, you open the lid as I've just shown, take your things out and put it back in again, and there's plenty of space for the fridge there and the battery over there as well. So it will be sort of like that. Now the power, annoyingly, goes in there, so the wire will have to go round the side of it, but it's not critical. And then it will obviously push in on some runners and a little tray back there, and there's still plenty of space around the back there for the battery. So I'm quite pleased with that. There it is in mock-up situ, perched on top of various tools. Plenty of space in there for that little fridge, and given that this is a day boat, which you might go away for one night on, that is plenty of fridge capacity. There are a couple of other things I've bought which I haven't brought along. I've got some 1 centimetre thick, what's that in inches, about 1/3 of an inch, bit over that, isn't it? 2.5 centimetres to an inch. Anyway, it's about that thick. It's closed cell foam, which theoretically should give me a small amount of insulation here. It's sticky on one side, though I will probably add extra glue as well. And it's got that reflective foil on the other, which will of course be completely pointless once it's all covered in carpet anyway. And yes, that is the other thing I've bought, is some 4-way stretch carpet. Again, the kind of thing you find in camper vans. And various people were saying, oh, you don't want carpet in a boat. But no, it's the law. It's the law. It's the rules. If you have a cabin cruiser of a small river type variety, carpet on the walls. That's what they all have. It seems to be, I'm not saying it's written law, just seems to be the rule that if you have a small cabin cruiser, it's got to be done out like a caravan inside, and that means carpet on the walls. So I am doing the same thing, and I bought this stretch carpet, which hopefully is going to be stretchier than the stuff I used in the van, which did not want to stretch at all and drove me absolutely mad trying to go around all the little contours. And now I've seen how many funny little contours there are here, I'm hoping this other stuff does the same. So the centimetre thick insulation goes on the walls and wherever I can put it on the roof, and then carpet over the top of that. That's going to be a fun exercise, obviously having put the lights in the ceiling and some initial wiring as well to deal with that. And then, well, crack on with all the electrics and stuff, I suppose. It is not quite lunchtime now, but I think I'm going to have a quick pause. There's a Tesco over the road. Go and get myself a sandwich and a meal deal and all that. And then this afternoon I will crack on with really the bulk of the sanding that remains is over in that corner, the starboard side at the front, and just get some more of that done so that we are one step closer to doing that insulation and carpeting. And a couple of hours later, which is about as much as I can usually cope with, this is how it looks. Now you're probably thinking it looks exactly the same, and yes it does, but I have in fact done quite a bit of sanding over on that side and removal of adhesive and all that. Doesn't look like much, but I have. And just before we finish, one final thing. This orangey plastic, stiff plastic board here that the battery thing is mounted into, what on earth is this plastic called? I tried looking up plastic sheets on Amazon and all I got was plastic bed sheets for people with incontinence problems. It's some sort of melamine, or what did they call that stuff in the 70s? Bakelite? Or no, it's not Bakelite I'm thinking of, is it? But you know what I mean. Anyway, where on earth would I get a square of this solid, few millimetres thick plastic that I can then mount that into? What's it called and where would I get it? That's it for now. Cheerio.